Welcome to What Do Siblings Talk About?
I'm Jacob,
And I'm Veronica.
and we're siblings.
Yay. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. This is episode 12, and we are going to be talking about homesteading, the homesteading movement in the U.S., and I think particularly about one guy in particular, a farmer named Joel Salatin, who has sort of kicked off, I would say, the modern homesteading movement here.
Ahead of the curve.
Yes.
Although he doesn't quite fall in the homesteading category, he's an actually commercially successful farmer in his own right.
He's a regenerative farmer from South America.
He makes more farmers.
Yes,
that's what regenerative
I think
means?
he actually, I mean, if you want to be literal, I think he has made more farmers because his children also work on the farm. But no, he's kind of a funny guy. But his particular focus, I think, is on getting back to sort of quote unquote natural ways of producing food.
So, Veronica, what do you know then, if we're talking about Joel Salatin, if we're talking about homesteading, what is it about farms and food in America that makes this alt and edgy and worth talking about in the first place? Or is this just the norm?
Well, I guess it depends. In certain circles, it is the norm. Everybody's trying to grow their own food. I think, it's something that has always existed in America. I think since we started, everyone was kind of doing their own thing. But in particular, this is a movement that probably came out of the post-war 50s, 60s. It was sort of taken over by the hippies for a little bit, and is now taken over by, I guess you would broadly call them libertarians. People who just want to do their own thing. They want to produce their own meat, their own vegetables, build their own barns, ride their own horses, whatever it is. They want to do things for themselves.
Throw their own bear carcasses in Central Park.
And a lot of it is, I guess it's sort of a two-pronged thing. Some of it is purely about liberty. People just want to do things for themselves rather than having to be told, this is the chicken you're going to eat, or this is the milk you're going to drink. They just want to have the opportunity to choose for themselves. So that's half of it. The other half of it is, I think, has to do with the sort of the health side, both the health of people want to eat things that they think are better, and in large part, they think that producing their own food will make it more nutritionally good for them than getting stuff from a factory or a grocery store. And I think also they believe that it will be healthier for the earth, that the methods that I use to grow my own corn or raise my own chickens will be better for the ground and the chickens than whatever methods are being used commercially.
Yeah. So you suggested some articles. I also listened to an interview with Joel Salatin, and I picked up some of the threads that you are pointing out. And one of them is to really understand why this movement exists, what makes it compelling, and whether or not it's something that would appeal to me either for myself or just kind of objectively as being a good thing. It asks a lot of values questions, like what do you think are the important things in terms of the way I live my life, my health, my family's health, the local community, my engagement with the people I live around, the earth, how animals are treated. So questions that I guess I don't face on a daily basis or don't present themselves to me on a daily basis. So that was an interesting start. One thing I wanted to start off on was I started with the Wikipedia article on Joel Salatin, which Wikipedia can get a little bit political, and I think the article is a little bit political. But one of the things that struck me is you talk about the homesteading movement, and Veronica, you and I are both well aware of Ballerina Farm,
Sorry.
our favorite content producer. I don't not actually seen a
I
single piece of
I was gonna
content from
say
her, but
I know who Ballerina Farm is. I don't think I've ever actually viewed any Ballerina Farm
I
content.
have listened to full podcasts about Ballerina
Just
Farm.
by sort of osmosis, the words Ballerina Farm have entered my vocabulary.
Yeah, well, Ballerina Farm, I think it's very well known that at least the husband, if not both of them, come from an exceedingly wealthy family. And
Yeah.
one of the things that struck me about Joel Salatin is his father was apparently made a lot off of the oil business,
Yes.
which
Yes. Hence the South American. He's not actually South American, but his parents moved to South America, made a bunch of money in oil, and then they moved back. Um, yeah.
so one of the things that struck me is that I do want to be a little bit realistic that to be able to buy enough land, to be able to get your hands on enough resources, to be able to have the time to sort of experiment and run things on a non-sustainable scale to the point where you can get them sustainable is not something everybody can do.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. And
so
it's not cheap. Um,
right,
I mean, the original U.S. homesteaders are people back when we had too much land. Abraham Lincoln basically was giving away, I think it was 150 acres he was just like, here, if you will go live on this land, have 150 acres. So those people were getting free land just to start out with. And I mean, 150 acres nowadays would be a huge amount. Um, so yeah, no, it's certainly the upfront costs now are massive. If you're not inheriting a farm, you're going to go have to buy a farm somewhere. It's going to take you a certain number of years to get to a point where you're sustainable, and so during that time, you're going to have to fund your everyday lifestyle somehow.
yep.
So yes, yeah, it's very expensive, and because you're dealing with agriculture, inevitably you're going to run into years, maybe multiple years on end, where all your cows get sick and you have a drought, and then you're sort of stuck. So yeah, it's not cheap and it's not for the faint of heart. But I think what a lot of people are finding is it's extremely rewarding. And the benefits even if you do it on a very small scale, the benefits are huge.
So I agree with all that, and I do want to say in Salatin's benefit, we need people like him to be out there to try stuff out and to figure out what can work, and then to be able to share that with other people. I think I'd say this of any influencer who can kind of bring positive stuff. Like, let's be grateful for the largesse that allowed them to get where they are,
Yeah.
to allow other people to copy. Because I think part of what Joel Salatin is doing is he's rediscovering. He's been around. He's been doing this for a lot longer than most of the people into homesteading today. I
Yeah.
was reading some kind of periodical that got sent that like the median age of somebody practicing homesteading is like 39, and
Yeah.
Joel Salatin's been farming longer than that.
Well, it got a huge boost during COVID because suddenly everyone was
Right.
trapped at home, and sometimes the grocery stores didn't have eggs or lettuce or whatever.
Sometimes you got to go grow that toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly. Chop down the trees, make your own toilet paper. Yeah. So and that's, I think, even before then he was sort of a father figure, and then especially in the last 5 years, people have been turning to people like Joel Salatin and other influencers for that wisdom that they've gained, and a lot of, I think when the U.S. and the world at large moved to sort of factory farming, large scale production of what we eat, in a large part we lost some of the skills that we
Yep.
had for 150 years or so at that point. And so people like Joel Salatin, to your point, are great because they're going back, they're rediscovering these old skills, and they're throwing stuff against a wall and seeing what sticks and trying to update those skills, to take advantage of some of our modern technology, but then also marry that with what we were doing prior to when Tyson took over all of our chickens.
Yeah, and I think it involves not just sort of throwing things against the wall and seeing what doesn't break. I think it probably involves a lot of also rediscovering things that we had forgotten about that actually work really well.
Sure. And
So,
and also rediscovering there's certain things that Salatin and other homesteaders do that work really well on a small scale. And if you were to try and do them on a large scale to, feed a whole county or a whole state or whatever it is, they probably wouldn't work as well. But, if you're feeding, say, 20 people, it's great. It won't scale up to feed, 20,000 people.
so Veronica, do you mind if I ask what your personal experience doing stuff like this is? Can you speak to? You've been saying it can be very, very rewarding even in the small scale. How are your alfalfa sprout seed beds doing?
I I only grow things that I like to eat. Um,
So,
bacon,
mushrooms,
bacon and
brie
cheese.
cheese.
Um, no, so I was thinking about this the other day. I have not bought protein of, well, I would rephrase it. I haven't bought meat, like non-dairy protein, in probably 2 years.
And this is
Um,
not because you're a vegetarian.
No, yes, not because I went veggie. But so I have pigs and goats, and that provides 99% of the meat that I eat.
And
Um,
how far from the pig to the table, or to the mouth, how much of that process do you handle
100,
yourself?
100%. So, like the most recent pigs I had, I got them when they were 6 weeks old from another farmer and raised them on my property. They graze. These are certain pigs you can't do this with, but the breed I had, they can graze, so they will eat grass like cows predominantly. And butcher them myself, put them in the freezer. So yes, that was 100%. I except for the first 6 weeks when they were on a different farm, their entire life was on my property.
Was your knife
Um,
sharp enough? I read some homesteaders have difficulty with sharpening their knives.
you definitely need a knife sharpener and multiple knives. That helps. Also, if you're going to get into butchering, I would recommend just go on Amazon and get like a pack of kitchen gloves that will prevent your fingers from getting sliced off. Very, very helpful.
Great tip.
um,
And I can speak to some personal experience in this as well. And this definitely goes back to the almost pre-internet days where as the oldest son of a family that was sort of trying to do some homesteading, I got assigned the job of learning how to hunt from parents who had grown up in the city.
yeah.
So I did a lot of deer hunting and butchering, at least to a certain extent, and then we handed off the larger pieces of meat to you people indoors to
Yeah.
finish the job. So not something I'm completely unfamiliar with. Do you have any issues with dealing with all the things that come off of an animal? Like you go into a store, you can just buy, a filet
Oh,
mignon with
pre-packed. Um,
it doesn't come out of the pig that way.
don't have to worry. No, it doesn't.
Skin, hoofs, fat.
Not
Where does it all
really.
go?
So I will say there are certainly people who make a lot more personal use of their animals than I do. So uh like people will take their intestines and wash the intestines and then use them for their own sausage. Or people
Balloons
will
for the kid's birthday party.
yeah, turn the bladder into a balloon. Um
You're
and
more of a hunter gatherer pig farmer.
that's right. I just sort of opportunistically cut off the hams and then I leave the rest. No, I I definitely use all the meat. I use some, but not all of the organs. I mean, some people will cook the brain and then make whatever special brain sausage. I don't do that. But I will say I have dogs. So all of it gets eaten by someone. Not all of it gets eaten by the humans. So it doesn't go to waste. So
Now,
if I didn't have dogs, I would probably try to use slightly more than I do.
Gotcha. Do you butcher your goats as well, or are those just for milk?
Yes, yeah. So in fact, on
Milk.
Easter, they're primarily dairy goats, but in order to get goats to give you milk, they have to be pregnant and then have baby goats. And when you have a herd of goats, you really only need one boy goat. So I mean, you could have like one boy goat and 20 female goats. They have a lot of stamina. So
Got a harem situation going on here.
well, no. See, this is the thing. I think chickens work the same way. You only need, one cock for a lot of hens. But there are other animals like geese. I think geese. If you have one male goose, one or two, maybe three females at a push, and then you need another. You need another
Yeah.
male.
And just to throw it in there, I want to talk about the topic of sex selection in the animal world. I think people get used to the fact that
we were going here, but okay.
the fact that humans are used to humans being born roughly 50-50 male and female. Even that's an illusion. Humans are born substantially more male humans are born than female. It's like 53-47, I believe.
Yes.
And that's just true across the board.
Because the females survived better.
Yeah, because the females survive better. That's
just
pretty
look
good reason.
up the articles for Florida man versus Florida woman, and you'll understand why we need that spread.
So my understanding in the animal world is this 50-50 rule really is not a universal. I think what I heard with white-tailed deer, for example, is that at birth you get almost three females per one male.
Really? And I'm trying to think
I've heard
now.
this. This could be wrong. I haven't read the wiki page on this. But.
My goats have been roughly 50-50, but it's a very small selection sample size. But so anyway, to get back to goat meat, I don't really need extra males. So any boys that are born in the spring, I will raise to somewhere between 3 months to a year, and then butcher those and eat them. So like for Easter. Easter Sunday morning, I killed a goat and butchered it and ate it that afternoon.
Eating 3 months old is tight.
They're delicious. I was worried because I don't particularly like mutton, which is sheep meat. And when I was reading various things online, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, it tastes sort of like sheep. It's sort of similar." It's not similar at all.
I agree.
Goat is a lot closer to deer, I think.
Yeah, or I think even closer to lamb, I would say.
Yeah. But very mild, delicious, especially when they're only 3 months old. It's very tender.
Yeah, and you're not having to, have it sit on a shelf and be frozen and shipped a long way.
Yeah, no, I mean, literally hours from walking around outside to being on a plate.
Yep. Well, let's jump back to Salatin real quick, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What is the lifestyle like, do you think, for people living in this kind of sort of sustainable or semi-sustainable? So I'm not talking about like a little project farm that, a couple that have office jobs might be able to run on the side at home as a hobby. For people who are actually still engaged in not the large scale commercial stuff, but actually in like real local farming.
Mm.
What do you think that lifestyle is like, and is that something that appeals to you?
Yeah. Well, I'll answer the second question first. Yes. It's constant work, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's bad work. So I am not anywhere close to where Salatin is. But if you're running a homestead like that, where, I mean, he's in a situation where he's not only producing all of his food, but he's also selling excess to other people. So when there's always something to do. There are always projects. There's always stuff to take care of. There are always chores. But I mean, for me, I like that. If I could be outside 100% of the time, I would do that just because I like being outside, wandering around doing stuff. But it's definitely, I think, if you didn't grow up in a rural area or on some sort of homestead, it's definitely something you have to get used to. Especially if you have animals versus a garden. If you have a garden, you need to sort of tend to it on a daily basis. But there are fallow times during the winter where you probably don't have that much, if anything, planted. So you're not doing a ton of stuff. If you have animals, it's like having children. You are taking care of them multiple times a day, every single day of the year. So you're not going on
and
vacation.
They can't get along without you.
It's like babies / toddlers. You're not going on vacation unless you find someone who is also good at taking care of animals to come house sit for you. You're not sleeping in on the weekends because your animals have a schedule and they get very angry usually if you don't keep to that schedule. You're not out partying Friday and Saturday nights because, again, you have chores that get done at a certain amount of time and the animals don't like it if you disrupt those times. So it's certainly, you become very tied to your homestead. And that can be a positive thing. It can also feel very restrictive, though. And especially if you're doing it on your own and you don't really have like a relief person to swap out with. It's similar to single parenting. If it's much easier if you have another parent who can be like, okay, tonight I'm going to sleep and you get up all the time so the baby cries. So yeah, I think there are a lot of parallels there where it helps to have other people around you who you can share the responsibility with, both within your own household and sort of neighbors who you can, if you're at the store and an animal gets loose, you can text the neighbor and be like, hey, can you put, Ralph back in the barn or whatever. So yes, having that support network is hugely helpful, but I don't know. It's something you have to. I wouldn't just go into it sort of willy-nilly. It's definitely something to think about and to sort of ease yourself into rather than sort of jumping in with both feet and then sort of getting disillusioned and lost.
It seems like the kind of thing you would want to experience, at least to some extent,
yeah.
prior to.
It's a lifestyle, right? It's not it's not like I'm going to go on vacation to Disneyland. It's, it's like if you're going to go to a monastery and be a monk. Yeah, there's a reason that they make monks go through, several years before they take permanent vows and they're not going to leave the monastery. Because it's a huge lifestyle change. And I think homesteading is similar. Again, especially if you have animals, that's a huge lifestyle change and you need to be ready for that.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me about Salatin when I started reading and listening to him and stuff about him is, this applies to the homesteading movement as well, the strong connections between people who are interested in homesteading or running their own farms and homeschooling. And that I think there are some similarities here as well. And some of what you were just saying around it being better if you're not doing it alone, and especially if you can be in a community, made a lot of sense to me.
Well, and again, for several reasons. Part of it is just practically it's hard to do everything by yourself all the time, and to have all that responsibility on you all the time. But also because, I mean, both with farming and with homeschooling, it's very difficult to get up to sort of an expert level at everything, both from a knowledge aspect and from a sort of equipment aspect. So if there, yes, I could teach my kid math, or I can butcher all my own animals. But if I have a neighbor who has, 50 knives and a much better, garage, whatever, that's set up to butcher animals, then, maybe I'll just let him do it. Or if I have a neighbor who happens to have a PhD in math, why not let him teach my kids math and I'll teach them English and history? So yes, you can do everything yourself, but it is helpful to have that community around you where you can sort of mix and match different skills and different, equipment, and sort of pool your knowledge and your resources and kind of pick the best of the best.
Yeah. So my mind goes to like big picture. I deal with large infrastructure problems in my day job, and I'm often thinking about how do we run things on the biggest scale with the least overhead and the least liability, and taking into account reliability problems and supply chains and so forth. And Salatin's a smart guy. I was listening to him on a podcast, and he thinks of these things too. I'm still a little unclear about. He seems to have this idea. Maybe this is wrong, and you might know better. That we could move to a future where sort of self-sustainable, relatively small-scale regenerative farming could kind of be the normal solution for a large country like the United States.
Yeah.
Do you see that as a likely or even possible future down the road? A necessary future? What do you think this is scalable like that?
I don't know that it's scalable on that size. Is it preferable? Yes. Isn't it an ideal that we should shoot for? Yes. But realistically, I think there would just need to be so much work done to get a system like that in place. I don't know that you could do that in the US. I think it's the sort of thing where you would have to sort of almost start your own country and bring in people who specifically probably already knew what to do. And then I think you'd have to start from scratch because so much
when
in
it
the
warms
US
up enough, we can do this in Antarctica.
There we go. Greenland. Greenland. We'll take over
Greenland. I hear that's on the sales.
It's on the cards.
It's up for auction.
Yeah, I think so much in the US is already set up to run off of a different system that to sort of go back and I don't know, retrofit the whole system or however you want to describe it. It just realistically, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
A lot of what was going on in my
unless
imagination,
there's some sort of population collapse, zombie apocalypse.
That will happen.
Style.
That is happening. What will come out of that will be another question. But a lot of what was going through my head as I was trying to imagine scaling this up is when you start putting together, like, my first thought was, okay, you get a community of farms and farmers who run things like this. And then what else do you need to provide a community? Okay, you're going to need somebody to run the store. You probably need a butcher. Mm-hmm. You need some school teachers. Oh, wait, I'm describing like a pre-industrial town. like that's it looks weirdly like I don't know, England prior to 1800. Now, would that be a nice thing to return to? Maybe we are going back to that. But I guess the question that comes to my mind is, it sounds like we're trying to undo some of the bad parts of the Industrial Revolution. Yeah. And is that possible? Like, can we actually pull people out of the industrial workforce, the service industry workforce, Or can these farms be so productive that we can devote, 15% of the population to farming, or maybe 30% of the population to farming and running small communities, and other people do other things? And will people want to stay like that?
Yeah.
Because classically, the United States has been a place where people have sought like the best growth options and opportunities. And, when something new pops up, these farms, you need these communities to run generationally through generations. You can't just, lose your whole farming population because something new pops up in the city.
Sure. I don't know. I think it would be difficult. I mean, I don't want to go back to a fully like agrarian society. I want to produce my own food. And I want to be self-sustainable in the sense that, if there's a power outage or a war or a pandemic, whatever it is, I can just hang out in my house for an extended period of time and not worry about stuff. But
yeah, I can't do that. I live in an apartment.
yeah. But on the other hand, I order things from Amazon all the time because they get, do I need butcher knives to butcher the pig that I raised myself? Guess what? Amazon can have them at my doorstep tomorrow. And I mean, part of that is, sure, if there were an what do you call it? Ironsmith, across the street, I would blacksmith. There you go. I would go get his, stuff, but realistically, it's just never going to happen where, I think, it would just be such a monumental effort to put in place all of the infrastructure, and then teach all of the people all of those skills to get back to like a functioning agrarian society. Realistically, I don't think it's going to happen, and unless, like you say, we're forced into it by some sort of outside event.
Yeah. What's so important about food? You said you want to grow all your own food.
Yeah.
Why food?
A part of
like
it
in the hierarchy of good things, where does food fall?
Come on, food is the best thing. We all know that.
Food is a pretty good thing.
Hierarchy of things. I think it's several things. Part of it is it's hugely satisfying to produce the things that you eat or wear or look at. Like, in any of this sort of arts, broadly speaking, to be able to do something for yourself, it's hugely satisfying, just in and of itself. But I think a large part of it for me comes down to, I think the food that I produce, the food that I can produce, is healthier than what I can get out of a grocery store. It tastes better across the board. And it's environmentally, the stuff that I get from my backyard is going to be better for the planet at large, if you care about that, than the stuff that's, been trucked across however many states to end up at the grocery store.
Sounds like you're thoughtful about your relationship with your own body, and to some extent with nature and so forth.
To some extent.
I think that
I somewhat care about the earth, but no.
Well, I don't think everybody is that way.
Well, it's true. It's true. And I will admit, the convenience of being able to go to the store is huge. And in certain circumstances like that outweighs the health aspect of growing something for yourself.
You have stores still?
We
do DoorDash here.
We still have storage. I don't produce everything I can for myself. I mean, primarily, I would say, any of your wheat products, in order to grow enough wheat and then grind it and produce your own flour, that's very difficult to do on a small scale.
You need a massive farm even to make a tractor worthwhile.
Yeah.
Let alone a combine and yep.
Yeah. So any of your sort of bread, gluten, wheat products, that is probably the most difficult thing to do for a homesteader.
So the raw meat processors, the hand ones you get on Temu, those don't.
They don't work. Yeah. I mean, I could just go keto, and that would solve the problem.
You know what I've seen in the future, Veronica? So here's some venture capitalist out there. Hop on this bandwagon because it'll make you buckets of cash. You know those all-in-one coffee makers? So if you're really, really
Yeah.
extra coffee crazy,
You
you're going to
grind
grind
your
it
own
yourself
beans.
with a hand press and you're going to do all the stuff. But if you're a tier below there, you get the fancy coffee machines where you just put in the nice oily beans and then you press the button and the
One's more
coffee
fast, yeah.
machine grinds the beans and then does the coffee thing. The water never touches anything that,
Yeah.
wasn't kissed by Mother Gaia and so forth. And you get the coffee out the other end and it tastes amazing. Why could we not have a similar machine for wheat? Where you just take the wheat kernels and you put it in the machine. It grinds them, it cooks them, it bleaches them if you want that, but why would you?
I mean,
Just
you could like roast your own wheat and then put it in a coffee machine and
make
make
wheat
sort of
juice.
gruel. But no, I mean, you like if you have a coffee grinder, that is the right kind of grinder, broadly speaking, for grinding wheat.
The trouble is you
It's
have to send all your wheat down to Latin America and Africa to get it cooked,
actually the
and then they
best thing
ship it
to
back.
do is to get a cat and have it eat your wheat, and then
Or a monkey.
it makes it taste better. I don't know what we were, we were talking about. But yeah, yes, I still have to go to the store. I would need way more land than I have right now in order to grow my own wheat and make my own flour. And I don't know how we got onto that train of thought, but
Well,
yes, the health aspect of, I probably more seriously than your average person, I consider the things that I eat and put in my body, both from a health aspect and from a sort of gourmet aspect of, I like things to taste really good. So,
Yeah. One thing I want to note about something Salatin didn't say directly, but made me think of before we jump to homesteading. I mean, we've been talking about homesteading, but I have a few additional thoughts. So, in juxtaposing sort of this spectrum between Salatin on one side and big industrial farming on the other,
mhm.
it made me think about the fact that to make things work at economies of scale in these big farms, what you have to do is like separate everything out. So we're going to take all of our all the labor that goes into farming and we're going to turn that into diesel fuel and machines. And then we're going to take the product that comes out of farming and we're going to have the pig part. Oh, and then we're going to take the feed part and we're going to separate that from the pigs and we're going to have the feed part happen in another place. And then the transport part, we're not going to have the pigs go get their food. We're going to use a truck to bring the food to the pig. And then we're going to take the pig and the slaughterhouse, and those are now separate parts. And this is how you do things at economies of scale, is you take it into all these little parts and then you run each part at a massive level. And it turns into this big machine. And when artificial meats were first becoming a thing several years ago, I don't have strong opinions on artificial meat. I like beef a lot, and I don't see a reason not to eat cow beef.
Yeah.
But I read an article about how some companies were making the artificial meats, and it really creeped me out. Like they were effectively using mass-generated hormones and really kind of stuff that the human body or a cow body would naturally produce, and like in very artificial and machine-controlled ways, doing it on large levels. And effectively, the factory producing this artificial beef was trying to basically build a mechanized cow on a large scale. And it was just, when I read it, it hit that uncanny valley thing, among other things, where it's like, this is really
This
creepy.
just seems wrong.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
listening to Salatin, I wonder if that's almost a natural evolution of large-scale farming. Is that as you move increasingly away from running the farm, like
On
everything's
a
here,
personal level. Yeah.
let the pig be a pig, and you move increasingly toward mechanization and specialization, and eventually, you get to artificial meat, and that's the kind of the necessary next step, and it's going to be cardboard after that, and then we'll just have to change humans so that humans can digest, dust shavings and sit in a cube. and not move.
Looking forward to that. Um, yeah, no, I do think to a certain extent that is sort of the natural or unnatural end of that push to sort of force nature into a machine, if you will. Um, that yeah, once you start going down that road, there isn't a path where you come back out with a cow on the other side. Like you will just increasingly go down the path of making things more and more and more machine-like. Um,
As long
yeah,
as you get like Tekkens and Gundams, and I'll be okay. All right, can we jump to a couple homesteading points?
sure. I mean, I think we have been, but
We have been.
specific ones.
Yeah. So one question I have for you is: we are millennials. Um, were we homesteaders growing up, by your reckoning?
Uh, I mean, I would say no. Well, it really depends what you mean by homesteading.
Yeah. So we ended up with at the largest scale, we ended up with about a half-acre farm. I mean, we grew
Well,
pine
like
trees for
half acre garden sort of.
garden. That's what
Yeah.
I meant. We had pine trees for like farm land use purposes. We had
About
chickens that we would
50
sell
chickens.
eggs to neighbors. We had neighbors with goats and sheep and so forth that we would help out with. We never had any ourselves. Um, does
And
it that doesn't
grew,
qualify?
we grew deer.
We grew and harvested deer.
Yeah, and we had some fruit trees, some fruit bushes. But I guess realistically, I would say homesteading is a sliding scale, right? And at the beginning of the scale, you
It's like,
have
how gay are you?
sorry. It's not like a yes, you're a homesteader, no, you're not. It's a scale of homesteadedness. And I think at the very start of the scale, you would put someone who like has a couple pots of herbs in their kitchen. And then all the way at the other end of the scale, you have Captain Fantastic, who lives in a forest and produces, his clothes for himself. So yes, if you look at it like that, we were on that scale of homesteading. I mean, certainly we ate, 99% of the eggs came from our farm.
Yeah, and in the summer, a large proportion of our vegetable
Oh yeah, a large portion
consumption
of
was,
vegetables.
and this is for a large family.
Depending on what year it was, a large portion of our red meat we would have gotten ourselves. So yes, certainly I think we were on that homesteading scale. But I mean, it's a bit like people in Maryland. If you ask if they're from the South, they'll say no. But then if you talk to people in Georgia, they'll say Maryland is the North. If you talk to people in New Hampshire, they'll say Maryland is the South, because they're on a scale of southernness. But yes, we were homesteaders, just not as homesteady as some people. Certainly,
Yeah,
I think nowadays, I think we would not have been homesteady enough to sort of start a homesteader influencer channel. That's
yeah, fair
that's
enough.
like your benchmark for how homesteady are you.
I think something that I would say was interesting about us growing up as well, and this is more a testament to our parents, particularly our mother's interests. I mean, she was largely the one driving that interest. I think a lot of people who get into homesteading, it's like it's a ship you get on that set sail, and then you just keep going. Where I read one of these articles you sent. Some homesteader is talking to an interviewer and refers to chickens as the gateway drug to homestead. You get chickens, and then it's goats and
Spirals
sheep and
from there.
cows.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see, I'm
but
such an advanced homesteader. I've never had chickens.
well, but you did growing up.
We did growing up. That's true. I'm
Um,
chickened out.
we wow.
I've been I've been waiting for like 40 minutes to get that pun.
you, you had your jokes written down in advance. So, but what I wanted to say about us growing up is we kind of hit this like mid-tier 40% homesteader threshold, and then we
Sure.
just stayed there.
Yeah.
Which
Which
I think is a little unusual, but
I don't know. I think a lot of people get to a point where They sort of say, okay, this is as far as we can realistically go, um, and sort of hold at that level. And maybe they go back and forth through the range of things, but I don't know if that's too unusual.
Okay.
Maybe the level that we stopped at was relatively low compared to other people. But I think that sense of people get to a certain point and then they say, okay, the trade-off between the convenience of getting stuff from the real world versus making it for myself, like you reach a point where you hit that balance of
Yeah.
I'd rather have the convenience of getting it from Walmart than going through the process of creating it myself.
As well as what you've already mentioned about being able to go places, like being able to travel out of town to visit relatives or go on a family vacation. For
Sure.
for somebody who just has a garden, which can basically be ignored for a few weeks if necessary, and chickens, which need relatively little attention aside from just making sure they have water and feed, it's pretty easy to find a neighbor or a house sitter who can accommodate that. But
Yeah.
once you're starting to get larger animals involved, it's a lot more of a lift.
Yeah. Well, it's more of a lift, and the more different types of animals you have, the more it's not just a time thing, it's also a skill thing. Chickens, like you're saying, relatively easy to take care of to the point where, you don't need someone who's like experienced in chicken care. You can write down a list of, on a sheet of paper, do this, don't do that, checking on them twice a day, you're good. As you get into more and more animals, it becomes helpful if you can find someone who's also had those animals.
You can't just say if the baby pig cries, pick it up and burp it.
Do this. So yeah, it becomes it's not just the amount of time that they need, but also sort of the specialization of care that they need. And increasingly, if you have chickens or dogs and you go on vacation, you can get someone and say, hey, stop by at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., let them out for half an hour or whatever. As you increase your number and type of animals, you sort of increase the possibility that you want someone at your house 24/7, basically, while you're gone, which again becomes more of a problem.
Yep. So maybe there's a break-even point where you get to a scale where you and your immediate family are not the only ones running your farm, so that
Yeah.
you can trade off. And this is another point to the community thing, is if you can get involved in a community that other people are doing the same kind of thing and you can sort of share expertise and even taking care of other people's stuff for a little while if necessary, that's really nice.
Sure.
Two things I wanted to bring up which are relevant to the homesteading conversation are concerns about making animals suffer, particularly around like slaughtering animals. What are your thoughts on this, as well as the whole topic of like vegetarianism in the homesteading, the health food, the non-GMO food community? If you think this is like an organic thing within the community, or this is where does this come from? Do you have thoughts on either of these topics?
As regards to the first one, I think if you're a homesteader and you are producing your own meat and butchering it, obviously the animal is going to suffer at some point, but you can ensure that that animal has a very happy life and lots of good food and basically a couple minutes of pain, and that's it. And I think that's wildly different from you see videos of people who've been inside factory farms and animals that grow up in just a concrete lot somewhere, and they don't have a lot of space, and then are just they're sort of miserable all their lives. I mean, a lot of commercially produced meat, they pump full of steroids and nutrition of various kinds just to get them to a sort of healthy weight to where they can be butchered, which it's not ideal. If you're having to sort of medicate an animal through its entire lifespan, clearly you're not quite doing something right.
Yeah, I know this is true for chickens, that factory chicken farming, they pump it full of anabolic steroids so that it will grow to
Really
a full size quickest, and it'll have the largest muscles because that's your meat.
Yeah. Well,
So
but
that in part,
but it's not. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Part of the reason is so that you don't need to keep that chicken for 5 or 6 months until it's full grown. It'll be full grown in 11
A
weeks.
matter of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not just the steroids, but it's the antibiotics. Most of these animals heavily use antibiotics to keep them from getting sick because the
You make
environment.
it sound like the animals are shooting themselves up. Heavy users.
They're all living under bridges. But no, because the environment that they're being kept in is so unhealthy and unhygienic that if you didn't do that, you would lose a ton of animals to just infection. So the idea that I can keep my goats and my pigs, they get to run around in a field all day and be happy for 99% of their lives till that last minute. The amount of pain and suffering they go through is very, very small compared to the animals that you're getting in your grocery store. And I think if maybe this is sort of a bridge to your second question, I think if you're going to eat meat, it's good to, maybe not all the time, but at least at some point, I think it's good to have sort of direct knowledge of where that meat came from and to go through. And I'm not saying everybody needs to physically kill an animal to be able to have a burger, but just, it's very easy if you're just going to the grocery store or the drive-through all the time to be detached from where your food came from.
Yeah.
And I think it is important on, I guess you could say, a sort of spiritual level to understand the process of this. This was a living, breathing being, and now it's on my plate.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable. And one of the things that's been studied is the fact that kids who grow up without significant contact with, especially farm animals, over heavily anthropomorphize animals. In other words, if you don't grow up around animals, you don't even have a reference point. Like, an animal is something really interesting and really valuable and really cool and bears this unique character of its own, each animal being different, and they each have a unique relationship to humans. But humans who grow up without being able to experience what it's like to contact that animal, all they can think of is that animal's a human in a different shape. They just don't even have the paradigm. They don't know what a pig is.
Yeah. Well, and even outside of the animals that you're eating, sort of in parenting circles, something that gets talked about a fair amount is the benefits of having pets for your children because it teaches them about life and death. Right. So even just having a dog or a cat that obviously you're never going to eat in this country.
Yeah, I would also say it teaches them about sex.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you don't want to have the birds and the bees talk, just
hey, if
just
you have
animals that reproduce.
If you have a farm, you just let your kids watch, the cows having fun. But no, it does. It teaches it just by being around animals. It teaches you about sort of greater picture things about life and death and reproduction and personality and all sorts of things that are extremely helpful and very difficult to learn out of a textbook. It's much easier to sort of pick that up firsthand just by observation.
Yeah. One last thing I'll throw out there is I remember an episode several years ago of a family member who had a cancer diagnosis and was of an age where they were going to make their own decisions about their treatment options. And basically the doctors presented an array of treatment options and said, basically, this treatment will increase your likelihood of living beyond this time by this percent, and this treatment will increase it by this percent. And the doctors effectively presented the options as stacking. Mm-hmm. So if you want the best option of surviving and living to a good age and good health, this family member said they wanted all of the treatments. And it ended up being not a good experience, but also because I'm sure all the numbers that the doctors were presenting were single factor analysis numbers. It was this treatment compared to no treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't stacking. The trouble is if you give someone who has cancer 7 different kinds of treatments for the cancer. All those treatments have been studied compared to if a patient gets no treatment, and each might
Yeah.
help somewhat compared to nothing. But when you start stacking them, you might cause more harm than good.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
it's this sort of, well, this will help you 10%, and this will help you 10%, and this will help you 10%. But if you do all three of them together, that's not necessarily going to help you 30%.
yeah, and
Still
it
just
might be
be
worse than
10%.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like this is something Salatin grasps extremely well, and was a huge problem we as a society ran into during COVID, was this single factor view where all anybody was talking about was the risk from COVID. And
Mm-hmm.
nobody was talking about the risk from unemployment or depression or
Yeah.
joblessness or drug abuse or family, abuse within a home, and other things that happen when you start socially isolating, or cardiac problems from vaccinating people who don't really need it. It's a breath of fresh air to see people taking seriously like the big picture perspective.
Yeah.
Is that something you feel like has led you in that direction?
Maybe, I don't know if it was a conscious thought that I had, but it's certainly something that as I've gotten into like more and more along the homesteading path, certainly something I've thought about of, yeah, just sort of that big picture thing. And I don't know, I guess it is a little different from how maybe your average person views the world of, you're sort of constantly juggling a lot of different priorities and aspects of, I guess, just how a lot of different things impact each other, and then the fall-on effects of that. It's a little bit like playing chess, where you're sort of trying to look at all your pieces at once and make decisions based on what do I prioritize right now, which might be different
Yeah.
from what I prioritize next year. And then how do I arrange all of my pieces in the most effective way that I can? All right, that's sort of a very abstract way of
That's good.
looking at it, but
In this Salatin podcast I listened to, was the second show he did on Rogan, and even at one point in the show, Rogan was asking about the immune system, and Joe, who's an athlete, said, my understanding is the immune system is like the cardiovascular system, where the cardiovascular system, you need to stress it, not just to grow, but to stay healthy. And Joe said, is the immune system the same way? And the thought immediately went through my head is, the immune system and the cardiovascular system are not separate. They're
yeah,
not. You can't talk about those separate.
Then
When you go to the
isolate.
gym and train the cardiovascular system, you are also significantly affecting the immune system. Like,
Yeah,
it's a whole. And like you're saying, you've got to keep the whole in mind and say, what things am I going to attend to now?
yeah, and where am I putting my priorities? And
Priorities.
because there's always sort of a trade-off on things. I mean, probably the biggest trade-off with the whole homesteading thing is there's a huge amount of time, right? Nothing I do is the most efficient way to produce this food, right? Everything involves a significant amount of time on my part, whether it is growing lettuce or growing pigs. There's a significant input on my part, and you need to sort of place your priorities accordingly, and not everyone is going to have that amount of time, especially if you're just starting off and you're still working a full-time job and whatnot.
And I think the world we live in drives everyone to think of time as a commodity that's precious and needs to be directed to sort of the most financially rewarding thing possible. Like, is it worth your time to do that? Like, how much money are you wasting doing this thing when you could be doing this other thing where you're making more money? But I think you're dead right that we should be thinking more about time as something valuable that's given to us, where we need to think about what is worth giving my time to, rather than as an expendable asset that we need to maximize return on investment for.
Well, and that's why, I mean, earlier I was talking about homesteading as a lifestyle, but I think maybe the most helpful way to think about it is as an art. So when you go into it, don't think of it as this is a job or a career, because that will put you down the path of, more things in less time, and more, I need to make things more efficient and better, and that is an improvement. But when it comes to homesteading, like, think of it like you're painting a picture. You don't want to be the fastest at painting. You want to be the best at painting. You don't want to be like the fastest at ballet.
But when you are the best at painting, you can monetize it on TikTok.
That's right.
Okay, are we ready for Wikiroulette?
No, I have a question for you. Why?
Ooh, what's your question?
Why are you not homesteading? Where are your priorities? What's your goal in life?
I feel like this is far beyond the bounds of a podcast. I will give one anecdote from growing up. Hunting, I didn't mind. It was hard to kill deer because they're really beautiful animals. I will say that. But a lot of summers, we kids, especially us older kids, would be sent out to work in the garden, mostly weeding and so forth. And I hated it. I hated it so much. And I think part of the reason I hated it was I would perpetually get dehydrated and get sunstroke. And especially as a kid, I had terrible migraines. And I would just, every day in the summer when I was sent out to work in the garden, I would end up with a migraine. So that's my homesteading experience. I have zero desire to ever grow anything in the dirt. As far as raising animals, that's another thing. I like raising animals. I could see myself doing that eventually, but I also like to live near people. We grew up very isolated, and I really like to be around people.
I mean, I get the dirt thing. I find gardening very tedious, and I do it because I like the outcome, right? I like my own vegetables and fruit. But I'm not one of those people who finds gardening rewarding. Looking after animals, I find rewarding pretty much all the time, even when they're jerks. It's always fun. Every stage of looking after animals, I find rewarding.
Yeah.
Gardening is pretty much only rewarding when you get it on your plate. All of the labor up to that point is just sort of annoying, I find.
If you would like to start uploading some shorts of you interacting with your animals, I'm sure that would be a hit.
I feel like I would need a third person to be my cameraman.
One of the dogs.
There we go.
All right, are we ready now?
Yes, go.
All right.
See if the Pope Leo magic can sustain us.
We've had there have been a couple episodes now where we've had suspicious 2 episodes in a row, I want to say, where we've had suspicious luck. What do you think our odds are that the very first click is going to give us something shockingly related to what we've discussed today?
Come on, it's that the FBI agents have taken pity on us, and they're
more or less than 50%.
Oh,
what do you say? Oh, just give me yes or no.
Yes.
You're saying we're getting something related. Okay, here we go.
I mean,
maybe not so much.
There's a green field right there in the picture.
Yeah. It was in Kaunas, which is almost Kansas. But do we want to go with the 2009 European Under-23 Championships, or should we?
No, go next.
Okay, moving on. Gray baby syndrome.
This looks eerie.
This is a little depressing.
Some sort of fatal baby.
I mean, it's a reasonably long article. Do we want to go again? Yeah. I don't know that I can offer much on this topic.
Yeah, go again. Fine.
Okay. We rolled the list of cities in Tochigi Prefecture by population. Now, I think I actually...
Japan is predominantly, it's something like 2/3 mountainous. It's mostly mountain. Maybe more than 2/3.
So I have a factoid about Japan that I learned not too long ago that I found fascinating, which is that you frequently find the places on Earth that are the coldest are not the ones that get the most snowfall. So Antarctica famously doesn't get a lot of snow. Part of the reason is the air is so cold, the air simply cannot hold water vapor in it. So it gets a little bit of snow. It's just so cold
So is it
that
also
the
not
snow doesn't
cloudy
melt.
there? Can it,
Well, that would
like,
be another reason for it not being cloudy is if it's super cold.
okay.
You don't have water. There's no water that's able to evaporate through the air to the
Or
level where it's going to form clouds. So famously in the United States, Veronica, where is the heaviest snowfall in the United States?
Rocky Mountains.
No.
Heavy. Oh, probably by one of the lakes.
Lake effect
Buffalo.
snow. Yep. So typically Buffalo and Rochester, New York are the heaviest snowed on cities in the U.S., not because it's the coldest, but because
You
the
get the lake
prevailing
effect.
weather comes from the west across a body of water and then over those cities. Something like, I want to say the top 8 most snowy cities in the world are in Japan. And
Because it's a
particularly,
skinny little island surrounded by water.
it's a skinny little island, and so there's typically the air is coming actually off of the Asian landmass and across the Japan Strait, which is
Okay.
pretty darn wide. And then it just dumps on Japan. In fact, I think
So
like the
why?
city in the world that gets the most snow after the top one in Japan gets like 36 feet of snow a year, and the top city in Japan gets like 108. It's like just on
Yeah.
another level for snowfall.
So I have 2 follow-up questions. One is why. So why is that not the case in Scandinavia? And secondly, why is there not a I guess seemingly from a Western point of view, there is not like a huge snow-based culture in Japan.
There is in the north.
Okay. I mean, I know there've been Olympics there, but it's the sort of thing when you think of Iceland or Scandinavia, you think snow, like all of their cultures
Yeah.
around snow, and you don't think that when you think of Japan.
So I don't even need to go to what is the prevailing weather direction in Scandinavia. I just want to look at a map of the world, and we're going to go by latitude. So if Rochester and Buffalo, New York are down here, let's put Rochester and Buffalo, New York on the top of my monitor and scroll out and see where in Europe that is. So we're looking at northern Spain, Rome, Bulgaria. This is how far above the equator we're looking. Now, if we look at Scandinavia, even as low as Denmark, the southernmost point in Denmark is like
Oh, okay. So
2/3 of the way up Saskatchewan and Alberta.
they have an Antarctic problem.
They have the Antarctic problem.
Okay.
It's too cold there in the winter. So that would be my first response. Whereas if we go the other direction and look at Japan,
Okay.
much more equivalent. So
Making
Washington, D.C. is close to the same latitude as Tokyo. So I think that's part of
Okay.
what's going on. In fact, that probably favors Japan even more in the winter. It's probably even warmer there than Rochester and Buffalo. So when it does get cold enough for snow, especially if they're at elevation and down in the Sea of Japan, it's significantly above freezing. That's why they're getting dumped on.
Okay. Do you think
So there's my
the
first
land coming over the landmass has a difference too versus the ocean next to Scandinavia?
I imagine it does, but I don't know that I could guess off the top of my head why. You might end up with particularly warm winds coming off of the deserty areas, which are going to pick up more water. But that's just speculation. I imagine the water here in the North Pacific Ocean is going to be fairly cool most of the time, so less susceptible to be getting picked up for condensation. But you said you had 2 follow-up questions. One was about Scandinavia.
Yeah, no, the other one was why, like, culturally, Japan does not
Oh,
seem
yeah.
very snow-based.
Well, let's see. Well, we hear everything about like Tokyo, but can I spell it? No, I didn't spell it right. So Sapporo is the northern big island.
I mean, I'm even thinking, like, clothing style. I mean, maybe because,
Yeah.
like you're saying, most of what we're interacting with is the urban Japanese people rather than the rural ones who are living in the mountains. But It doesn't seem like it's a very cold country.
I mean, it is surrounded by ocean, so it's not going to be. But this is getting a little far afield of
We
Tochigi.
we didn't even mention Tochigi. We jumped
Yeah,
straight to
I know
random
something about Japan.
facts.
How about those little deer? Very friendly.
I'm just imagining an alternate universe where there's the Japanese podcasters and they pull up an article for, like cities in Oklahoma or something, and they just jump straight to random American facts they know.
So I am curious looking at this because we pulled up a list of cities, and significantly all we're getting is a list of cities by population. And then we have censuses from every 5 years from 95 to 2020. So we already broached this topic in the conversation today, but population collapse. And we can see it's
Yeah.
already happening. And significantly what's happening in Japan is the biggest cities are not the ones losing population yet. When you go to parts of Japan, my mouse works. It's the islands, and I have no idea if I'm going to pick the correct island, but you might get an island like this one, where you would have had 80,000 people living there 50 or 60 years ago. They're all gone. They all moved to the big cities in the mainland.
Yeah.
So you just get these ghost islands. And I think you can see this in this Wikipedia article already, is that the biggest city in Tochigi is Utsunomiya. And you can see 95 to 2020, population's very stable but growing a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you go down a few, the number 4 city, Ashikaga, has already lost significant population from 95. And the same is true as you go down the list. The 1995 population of most of these cities, with some notable exceptions, they've lost a third of their population since that time, which has got to be a weird experience to live through. But it's only going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah. Well, and as I think they're past the point of no return where like any kids growing up in those rural places, there's no reason for them to stay. Like there's not going to be any jobs for them.
Yeah, not just no reason, but they will not be able to stay. Yeah, they're going to have to move into the cities.
Yeah.
And
Which
then
is,
it's just
it's
a question.
interesting because, I mean, maybe it's just the way that the U.S. was founded. I don't think something like this would happen in the U.S. in the same way because, I don't know.
You don't think it's already happening between like the Midwestern cities? Like St. Louis has lost significant population since 1960. Same with Detroit.
Well, the city, yes, but
Metropolitan area.
yeah, I don't know. I guess my perception is that in the U.S. there's more of a sense of, at least among a certain segment of the population, of I'm just gonna live off the land. Maybe it's my homesteader brain where I'm like, well, if the city collapsed, I would just go on living the way I'm living, and yeah, I would lose a lot of conveniences that I get from Amazon, but ultimately, I would keep existing and growing my family. So.
Well, that's moving into a much bigger topic, but I think
I look forward to the zombie apocalypse, which will be the topic of our next podcast.
The homesteaders will emerge, all of them with their 14 children and army of pigs.
Everyone will be lining up at my doorstep. I don't know. I don't actually look forward to the apocalypse, and I think it would be very bad if some sort of event happened to force our societal collapse. But I think maybe because of my background and limited set of skills, I'm not as worried about it as probably a lot of people.
Good place to be.
Yeah.
Anything else, Veronica?
You could come live with me, so you don't need to be worried about it.
All right, I'll get my hiking boots ready because there will be no gas for my car.
That's right. But you won't need to drive anywhere. We have our own bacon, which is the number one thing you need. So
we can start a fast food restaurant in your front yard.
That's right. Which nobody can come to because they don't have cars either. Slow food restaurant.
See you next episode.
Bye.